Almost a year into Russia's war on Ukraine, and a top Ukrainian official says Moscow is planning another big call-up of troops in the months ahead. Russia denies it, but the deputy head of Ukraine's defense intelligence says Russia is expected to mobilize up to 500,000 additional troops for operations in the east and south. Fierce fighting continues in the east, in the town of Volodar in the Donetsk region, and in the city of Bakhmut, where intense battles are ongoing.
In the Donetsk region and in other areas, special attention is paid to Bakhmut, to our defense, to the occupiers' attempts to encircle the city and break defense lines there. We are reacting.
A Ukrainian general says the landscape around the embattled city of Bakhmut provides natural defences for Ukrainian fighters, making it an unwinnable fortress. This as the head of Russia's Wagner mercenaries issued an asinine challenge to Ukraine's president. Here's CNN's Fred Plykin.
Wagner boss Yevgeny Prigozhin taking to the skies, flying a combat aircraft challenging Ukraine's president to a dogfight. I landed. We bombed Bakhmut, he says. Tomorrow I'm boarding a MiG-29. If you desire, we'll meet in the sky. Ukraine acknowledges the Russians have made some gains around Bakhmut, but insists they're suffering catastrophic losses, the head of Ukraine's National Security Council tells me. The lack of shells, that is a significant disadvantage, he says, but in our favor, we are killing them at a ratio of 7 times to 1. Unfortunately, our men and women are dying there as well. Ukraine's entire eastern front has been heating up, the Russians deploying tens of thousands of troops mobilized late last year for what is expected to be a massive spring offensive. Even so, Ukraine's Security Council chief says his country is ready. We're concerned, he says, but I would stress that we are preparing together with our partners. Good preparations are being made now, so if the Russian offensive begins, it will be unsuccessful. But to turn the tide of this war, the Ukrainians say they need more long-range weapons to hit Russian supply line and combat aircraft to win control of the skies. They're confident of getting both eventually. It's only a matter of time until we get F-16s, he says. They will definitely come. Unfortunately, in the meantime, we're losing our people while fighting for our independence. The Russians say they foiled a drone attack deep inside Russian territory, only about 140 miles from Moscow. The Ukrainians have promised not to use Western weapons to hit Russian territory, but Danilov says Ukraine will use its own. Regarding Russian territory, nobody prohibits us to destroy targets with weapons produced in Ukraine, he says. Do we have such weapons? Yes, we do. For the Ukrainians, it's a race against time to secure and develop weapons that will hold off what they call Russia's revenge. Fred Plykin, CNN, Kyiv, Ukraine.
Some members of the UN Security Council called on Russia to end the war in Ukraine, even as Ukraine and the rest of the world waits for Russia's widely expected spring offensive. During debate Monday, the US ambassador pointed out that the ultimate decision on this war remains with one man.
We have heard your compassionate calls for negotiation, for a cessation of hostility. This is in the hands of one person, President Putin alone. Putin started this war, and he can end it today by pulling his troops out of Ukraine and really allow for peace to take place. For Ukraine, this is a matter of survival.
Almost 1 year into Vladimir Putin's war of choice, and clearly he underestimated the Ukrainian people. Underestimated a 102-year-old great-grandmother who's making camouflage to provide cover for Ukrainian snipers. Sam Carley has her remarkable story.
At 102, Lyubov's survival is extraordinary, not least because she's endured 3 famines over her century, and all of them blamed on the Kremlin.
We ate linden leaves, and nettles. We used to grind these wild plants into flour, bake with it, and eat it.
At 13, she saw her older brother and sister perish in Ukraine's worst mass starvation, the Holodomor.
My legs were swollen, my arms were swollen. I was so sick, I thought I was going to die.
In the early 1930s, on Joseph Stalin's orders, Ukraine's farmers were stripped of every grain they produced. to feed Moscow's industrialization.
Tiny children were dying of hunger. They were taken to a truck. They dug a big hole and threw them all in.
Ukraine is now 11 months into the latest Russian invasion. 3 of her grandchildren are soldiers fighting Russian troops because Russia's president doesn't believe that Ukraine exists. It should be noted that Ukraine actually never had stable traditions of real statehood, Putin claimed. Russia's assault on Ukraine's capital, Kiev, failed last year. Many Ukrainians believe they're fighting off another attempt at genocide.
The leaders and organisers of the genocide sit in the same offices in the same place. At the centre of these events is Moscow, and the object of destruction is Ukraine as a nation.
Ukraine's government says thousands of citizens have been forced into Russian territory and 14,000 children are missing.
How many millions of people died in the many famines brought upon by Russia in this country over the last century is a matter of debate among historians and human rights. Lawyers will debate whether or not what is happening today can be defined as a genocide. But there's no question that over the last 100 years, the relationship between Moscow and Ukraine has been bleak.
We need to exterminate them so that not a single one is left. Only then can there be any peace.
To help the war effort, she ties burlap into netting to make sniper camouflage. But it may be her laughter that has kept her going so many years. Sam Kiley, CNN, Kharkiv.